Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most legendary battles in history, Waterloo. 1815. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte's last shot at glory. A desperate gamble to reclaim his empire, and the epic showdown that changed Europe forever. It's got drama, strategy, and some serious stakes, so if you're into history, epic battles, or just a wild story, you're in the right place. Grab a drink, get comfy, and let's jump into this. It's April 1814, and Europe's been through a decade of chaos, all thanks to one man, Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French. On June 16, 1815, he splits his army. He sends his left wing, led by Marshal Ney, to seize the crossroads at Quatre-Bras, where they clash with Wellington's troops, who are still scrambling to get organized. He has picked his battlefield carefully, a gentle ridge that'll shield his troops from French cannon fire. With strong points at three fortified farms, Hougoumont on the right, Sainte in the center, and Papillotte on the left, all garrisoned with elite troops. Blücher sends a message promising to march to Wellington's aid the next day, so Wellington decides to make his stand. The British and German defenders at Hougoumont hold on for dear life. At one point, the French bust through the main gate, but the defenders slam it shut behind them, trapping and wiping out the intruders. Their horses are exhausted, their formation falls apart, and French cavalry counterattacks, cutting them down. Among the dead is Major General Sir William Ponsonby, commander of the Union Brigade. It's a brutal reminder that momentum can shift fast. Wellington later calls this the battle's turning point. The Allies put up a fierce fight, fending off wave after wave of French attacks and just barely hold their ground. Most of Wellington's troops are tucked behind the ridge, out of sight, but plenty of cannonballs still rip through their ranks, leaving carnage in their wake. At 1 p.m., Napoleon sends in his infantry. The French columns march forward, only to get hammered by disciplined Allied musket fire. Then British heavy cavalry charges in, smashing the French attack. Napoleon's men scatter, dodging hooves and sabers. The Allies even capture two of the French's prized eagle standards, a huge deal. His military genius built an empire that stretched across the continent from Spain to the borders of Russia. This is no gentleman's duel, it's a brutal, all-out brawl. The 72-year-old Blücher himself leads a cavalry charge, gets his horse shot out from under him, and narrowly escapes capture. But it's a mixed bag: British, Dutch, and German troops, many of whom have never seen combat. Napoleon's plan is to crush Wellington at Waterloo, opening the road to Brussels, while Grouchy keeps the Prussians tied up. But things go sideways. Grouchy gets bogged down fighting the Prussian rear guard at Wavre, letting the main Prussian force slip away to march toward Waterloo. Napoleon also delays his attack, waiting for the muddy ground to dry out for easier troop movement. Those lost hours, they're gonna cost him. They're up against Napoleon's battle-hardened veterans, so they'll need every edge they can get to hold out until the Prussians arrive. If they don't, the battle and maybe the whole war could be lost. The French come out on top, but the Prussians aren't crushed. They retreat, bloodied but still in the game. Napoleon sends Marshal Grouchy with his right wing to chase them down and keep them busy, while he turns his attention to Wellington. They're fed up with the same old elites who sparked the French Revolution 25 years earlier. Plus, at the Congress of Vienna, where Europe's powers are carving up the post-Napoleon world, they're bickering like crazy. Napoleon sees his chance. He sneaks back to France, and when troops are sent to arrest him, they flip sides and join him instead. Before long, most of France is rallying behind their old emperor. Talk about a comeback. But the tide's turned. A grand coalition of his enemies, Britain, Prussia, Austria, Russia, and more, has finally beaten him. Napoleon's forced to abdicate and gets shipped off to Elba, a tiny island in the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, France gets its old monarchy back in the form of Louis XVIII, a guy who's not exactly winning hearts and minds. But Napoleon's not done. After just 10 months in exile, he hears whispers. The French people aren't thrilled with the monarchy. The coalition in Vienna isn't having it. They declare Napoleon an outlaw and gear up for war. Napoleon knows they're coming for him, so he decides to strike first. His plan? Win a quick victory and negotiate peace from a position of strength before the coalition can launch a full invasion. He zeroes in on the closest targets, two armies camped in Belgium. There's Prince Blücher's Prussian army and the Duke of Wellington's Anglo-Allied army. Either one alone, Napoleon can handle. Together, that's a problem? His whole strategy hinges on keeping them apart and taking them down one at a time. Napoleon's army crosses into Belgium near Charleroi, aiming to drive a wedge between the Prussians and Wellington's forces. Meanwhile, Napoleon takes the main force to hit Blücher's Prussians near the village of Ligny. Wellington gets word of Blücher's defeat the next morning and orders a retreat through heavy summer rain to a spot 8 miles south of Brussels, near a little village called Waterloo. Here's the deal. Wellington's army is about the same size as Napoleon's. Sunday, June 18th, dawn's bright and clear. The battle kicks off around 11 a.m. Napoleon starts with a feint against Hougoumont on Wellington's right, hoping to trick him into pulling reserves from the center, where the real attack will hit. Around noon, 80 French cannons unleash a barrage on the main Allied line, but the British cavalry gets cocky, charging too far. So we left off with Napoleon hammering Wellington's army at Waterloo. His feint at Hougoumont didn't pull Wellington's reserves as planned, and his first infantry attack got crushed by British cavalry, though the Brits took heavy losses too. It's mid-afternoon, and the battle's heating up. They've slipped away from Marshal Grouchy, who's stuck fighting their rear guard at Waver. The Prussian advance hits the village of Plancenoit on Napoleon's right flank, threatening to roll up his army. Napoleon's forced to peel off precious reserves to retake Plancenoit, stretching his forces thin. Every man sent there is one less to throw at Wellington. Napoleon's got to break Wellington's line before the Prussians show up, or he's in big trouble. This is a big win. It lets them bring artillery forward and blast the Allied squares at point-blank range. Cannonballs tear through the tightly packed ranks and casualties pile up fast. Wellington's army is taking a beating, and it's starting to look like they might break. If they don't pull back soon, they could be wiped out where they stand. Around 4 p.m., Marshal Ney, one of Napoleon's top commanders, thinks he spots a crack in the Allied line. Some troops look like they're pulling back. He seizes the moment and launches a massive cavalry charge. Thousands of horsemen thundering toward Wellington's position to smash through what he thinks is a retreat. But Ney's got it wrong. The Allies aren't retreating, they're dug in, formed into hollow squares with bayonets fixed. These formations are like human fortresses, bristling with steel. The French cavalry can't break through. They circle, take potshots from the saddle, and get hammered by Allied musket fire and artillery. Without infantry or artillery support, Ney's charge is a disaster, a textbook blunder that costs the French dearly. Meanwhile, the Prussians under Prince Blücher are starting to arrive. By 6 p.m., the French finally capture La Haye Sainte, the fortified farm in the center of Wellington's line. But Napoleon's in a bind too. The Prussians are pouring in, and he's running low on troops. He's got one card left to play, the Imperial Guard, his elite reserve, the most feared soldiers in Europe. These guys are battle-hardened, loyal to the core, and known for turning hopeless fights into victories. At 7:30 p.m., 3,000 of them march past their emperor, across a battlefield littered with bodies, and straight toward Wellington's center. This is Napoleon's last roll of the dice. Wellington's redcoats, battered but defiant, rise to meet them. They unleash devastating volleys of musket fire, cutting down the guards' ranks. As the Allies fix bayonets and prepare to charge, something unthinkable happens. The Imperial Guard wavers. These are the guys who never back down, but the relentless fire is too much. They start to retreat. For the French, this is a gut punch. Seeing their elite break shakes the whole army's morale. Sensing the moment, Wellington gives the order for a general advance. At the same time, the Prussians retake Plancenoit, hitting Napoleon's flank hard. Rumors of the Imperial Guard's retreat and fears of being surrounded by the Prussians spread like wildfire through the French ranks. Panic sets in and Napoleon's army starts to collapse. Soldiers flee in chaos, abandoning their positions. Only the Old Guard, the most veteran of Napoleon's troops, holds firm, mounting a heroic but doomed rear-guard action to cover the retreat. Napoleon himself barely escapes. He abandons his carriage and rides off, dodging pursuing Prussian cavalry. The battle is over, and it's a crushing defeat for the French. Wellington and Blücher meet outside Napoleon's former headquarters in inn called La Belle Alliance. Blücher thinks it's a fitting name for their joint victory, but Wellington prefers to call it Waterloo, after his own headquarters nearby. In his words, it was a damned near-run thing, one of the bloodiest battles of the era. The numbers tell the story. About 50,000 men were killed or wounded. The coalition lost 23,000. The French 27,000. Medical care was so scarce that many wounded were left on the battlefield for days, a grim aftermath to the carnage. Napoleon's defeat was total. With no hope of raising another army, he surrendered to the British, who exiled him to Sainte Helena, a remote speck in the Atlantic. This time, there was no coming back. He died there 6 years later. So Waterloo was a brutal, game-changing clash. Napoleon's army crumbled, with 27,000 French casualties compared to 23,000 for the coalition. The victory ushered in a period of relative peace, with no major wars between Europe's great powers for 40 years. For Britain, it was even longer. They wouldn't fight on the continent again until 1914, when World War I broke out. Waterloo cemented Britain's status as a global powerhouse, with the Royal Navy and its armies calling the shots for decades. The Congress of Vienna, which had been bickering over Europe's future, could now move forward, redrawing borders and setting the stage for a new balance of power. The French fled in chaos, leaving the Old Guard to make a heroic but doomed stand. Napoleon barely escaped, only to surrender to the British soon after. They shipped him off to Sainte Helena, a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic, where he'd spend his final 6 years. No more comebacks, no more empires, just a man alone with his memories. The battle's impact was massive. Waterloo didn't just end Napoleon's reign. It reshaped Europe. The victory ushered in a period of relative peace, with no major wars between Europe's great powers for 40 years. For Britain, it was even longer. They wouldn't fight on the continent again until 1914, when World War I broke out. The battle was a brutal reminder of war's cost. With 50,000 men killed or wounded and many left suffering on the battlefield due to scarce medical care, it was one of the bloodiest days of its time. Yet, it also produced heroes. Wellington became a legend, his damn near run thing, quote, capturing the battle's razor-thin margin. Blücher, the 72-year-old Prussian who led a cavalry charge himself, proved age was no barrier to grit. And Napoleon? Even in defeat, his genius and ambition left a mark that's still studied today. Waterloo cemented Britain's status as a global powerhouse, with the Royal Navy and its armies calling the shots for decades. The Congress of Vienna, which had been bickering over Europe's future, could now move forward, redrawing borders and setting the stage for a new balance of power. But Waterloo's legacy isn't just about politics or borders, it's about people. The battle was a brutal reminder of war's cost. With 50,000 men killed or wounded and many left suffering on the battlefield due to scarce medical care, it was one of the bloodiest days of its time. Yet, it also produced heroes. Wellington became a legend, his damn near run thing, quote, capturing the battle's razor-thin margin. Blücher, the 72-year-old Prussian who led a cavalry charge himself, proved age was no barrier to grit. And Napoleon? Even in defeat, his genius and ambition left a mark that's still studied today. Fast forward 40 years, and the new art of photography gives us a haunting glimpse of Waterloo's survivors. Old men in their 70s and 80s, like Sergeant Tarrier of the Imperial Guard, Moreau of the 2nd Hussars, and Verlaine of the 2nd Guard Lancers stare out from early photos. Their weathered faces are a direct link to the chaos and courage of that day, a reminder of the human side of history. These guys marched with Napoleon, faced musket fire and cannonballs, and lived to tell the tale. What made Waterloo so epic wasn't just the scale or the stakes, it was the clash of wills. Napoleon's boldness, betting everything on a quick victory, went up against Wellington's cool-headed strategy and Blücher's relentless drive. The battle showed how one moment, like the Imperial Guard's retreat or the Prussian arrival, could tip the scales. It was a turning point, not just for the men fighting, but for the world they shaped. Now let's bring it to today. Back in 1815, if you wanted to make a difference, you might have joined the army or navy, faced the enemy, and carved your name in history. Napoleon, Wellington, and Blücher all found their niche in a world of war. Today, you don't need a battlefield to leave a mark, but the drive to find your purpose is just as real. That's where a group like 80,000 Hours comes in. They all about helping you use your career, those 80,000 hours you will spend working to make a positive impact. Whether you're into tackling climate change, AI risks, pandemics, or other big challenges, they've got free resources to guide you. Their career guide, which you can grab through the link in the description, breaks down how to find a high-impact path and make a plan to get there. They've got a job board with tons of opportunities, searchable by what you care about, plus free one-on-one advice and a podcast with experts diving deep into these issues. It's all free because they're a nonprofit, and it's perfect whether you're just starting out or looking to switch gears. Think of it as finding your own Waterloo without the cannonballs. Waterloo's story endures because it's about more than a single day. It's about courage, strategy, and the will to act when it matters most. I hope you've loved this journey through Napoleon's final stand and the legacy it left behind. If you enjoyed it, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more epic history stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Napoleon's defeat closed one chapter but opened another, shaping a century of peace and progress. The men who fought there, from the lowest soldier to the greatest general, remind us that history is made by people who show up and take a stand. That's a wrap on our three-part dive into the Battle of Waterloo. I hope you've loved this journey through Napoleon's final stand and the legacy it left behind. If you enjoyed it, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button for more epic history stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.